Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Haar, Managing Director at Swan Bitcoin, to discuss what's driving the price of Bitcoin and its relationship with inflation. John, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill. Great to be here.
You got it. First, let's kick it off. What's Wall Street's perception these days of Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I think it's still early days in Wall Street coming to terms with the fact that Bitcoin is an asset that's going to be around for quite some time. Typically, when Bitcoin is rising, they tend to think it's in a bubble. And then when Bitcoin's price falls, they tend to think it's dead, even though that cycle keeps happening and happening. I would attribute it to the fact that a discussion and an understanding of the history and nature of money is not something that is really talked about at the university level, nor at Wall Street when you actually get there.
What's driving Bitcoin in the short term?
Yeah, in the short term, I would say mainly monetary policy, fiscal policy, and the economic outlook. If you dive into that a little bit more, monetary policy, obviously, we're talking Fed policy, we're talking quantitative tightening, we're talking interest rates, all the things that you saw happen go in the reverse direction last year of what they had been in for the past few years before that. That drives Bitcoin's price in the short term for sure. Fiscal policy drives Bitcoin's price for sure. Economic outlook drives Bitcoin's price as well. Basically, how I would summarize it is Bitcoin's price is largely driven by monetary expansion. When there's monetary expansion, when that's going on, Bitcoin's price tends to rise. When there's monetary contraction activity going on, Bitcoin's price tends to fall.
And what if you think about it in longer term?
Yeah, in the longer term, Bitcoin is the asset that you want to hold if you believe that your local currency is going to be debased or censored. And I think it's pretty fair to say that the continual currency debasement, both from monetary and from fiscal factors, is the likely path forward for most countries and for most currencies. I believe if you look at the US, for example, US government debt and the size of the Fed's balance sheet, those are both going to be significantly larger if you look out 10, 20, 30 years from now. And I think adoption is another huge factor for what's driving Bitcoin's price in the long term. And I think that adoption is going to come from different places. It's going to come from individuals. It's going to come from family offices, corporations, nation states, sovereign wealth funds, and financial advisors. So really kind of broad-based adoption and interest over the coming years.
Now let's talk about Bitcoin's relationship with inflation. Is it fair to say that it's an inflation hedge, or is there some misunderstanding around that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is a tricky one because there are different definitions of inflation out there. I believe Bitcoin is an inflation hedge if we use what is the original definition of inflation, which is monetary expansion. The money supply is inflating. That's the original definition if you go back several decades ago. Unfortunately, that definition got changed over time, and now people use the word inflation to be synonymous with price levels, i.e. CPI. And I don't believe Bitcoin is an inflation hedge if you're just looking at CPI, because it's not an inflation hedge in the sense that if you wait for the day when CPI starts rising, Bitcoin's not going to be an inflation hedge for you, because Bitcoin's price appreciation likely happened as the money supply was expanding, which happens well before CPI starts rising. So if you look at it just relative to CPI, I get people saying, hey, it's not an inflation hedge, it's not a CPI hedge. I do believe it's an inflation hedge in terms of looking at monetary expansion as inflation.
Explain to us where Swan fits in the Bitcoin ecosystem. What solutions are you providing?
Absolutely. So Swan is a Bitcoin financial services firm. What does that mean? We make it easy for high net worth individuals, family offices, businesses, trusts to buy and accumulate Bitcoin and to learn about Bitcoin. So we offer individual accounts, corporate trust accounts, retirement accounts such as IRAs. We're also going to be expanding into other lines of business soon, something called Swan Custody that we're really excited about. This will be our multi-sig collaborative custody offering coming later this year. So a lot of things to be excited about on the Swan side.
All right, John, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.